The Matrix has been remembered for trench coats, slow-motion bullets, and apocalyptic philosophy. But beneath the spectacle lies a quieter revelation, one that unfolds not through force, but through perception. Neo's journey is not a rebellion against machines, rather it's a search for the origin of illusion. And what he uncovers is both subtle and profound. The simulation begins from within. At first, the world appears intact. Gravity is consistent and emotions arrive on cue, but then something begins to shift. When Neo touches a mirror and watches it ripple like water, the surface layer of reality no longer holds. But it's not the world that breaks, it's his internal agreement that the world is as it appears to be. The illusion doesn't collapse, but reveals its inherently formless nature. And in that moment, a new possibility emerges. If experience is constructed, can it also be deconstructed? The surface level world in the Matrix is persuasive only because it's reliable and coherent. Events unfold in familiar patterns. This cycle is not something Neo consciously creates, but it is one he participates in. The rhythm has been rehearsed so often, it has come to resemble reality itself. In this way, what we call reality is simply a reflection of the structures of our existing beliefs. Across many cultures and traditions, this subtle doubt in the structure of perception is acknowledged as the beginning of a profound shift in awareness. In yogic philosophy, the Sanskrit word Maya is often translated as illusion, though the term points to something more nuanced. Maya is not deception in the sense of trickery, rather it's the appearance of separation, the way perception gives a solid boundary and separate shape to what is essentially fluid and interconnected. The Matrix isn't held together by machinery alone, it's held together by something far more intimate: belief. Not loud, declarative belief, but quiet, repetitive agreement. A kind of consensus reality, reinforced not by choice but by habit. Neo didn't consciously choose to believe in the Matrix, he inherited it, absorbed it through repetition, and what felt urgent, what got rewarded, what seemed safe, those impressions settled into his body over time. Patterns became habits, habits became assumptions, and assumptions became reality. They formed the very atmosphere of what he believed to be true. This is where the Matrix lives, not in code or in cables, but in the body, in the breath that shortens when a rule is broken, in his heart when it races as somebody shouts, and in his muscles when they tighten at the sign of disapproval or conflict. The illusion persists not because the mind is fooled, but because the nervous system responds as if the simulation were real. Reality is rehearsed from the inside. Neo's captivity is not enforced by machines, it's maintained through reflex, conditioned responses, learned fears, and emotional memory. They all give the illusion its weight, and each time he reacts with fear or doubt, with the expected emotion, the Matrix tightens its grip. The system isn't something to be escaped, rather it's something to stop unconsciously repeating. This agreement is quiet but powerful, a shared and mostly unconscious structure of belief played out through sensation, emotion, and repetition. It creates the feeling of truth through sheer familiarity, and the moment Neo begins to feel without reacting, to notice without rehearsing, the simulation begins to dissolve. And he's not alone in this. The apparent solidity of the world is sustained by the shared nervous systems of those within it, all responding to the same cues, the same rhythms, and the same illusions. Before Neo can begin to see clearly, he must recognize the difference between truth and familiarity. Just because something feels emotionally charged, socially confirmed, or biologically familiar doesn't mean that it's true. This shift becomes visible in the dojo. Neo braces, he flinches, he prepares to resist. His body still believes in the rules, but Morpheus moves with effortless clarity, not because he's stronger, but because he's unhooked. He no longer participates in the logic of the simulation. And as the sparring continues, something begins to shift in Neo. His movements become less reactive, less defensive. He pauses, he observes, and in that stillness, something deeper begins to emerge. He starts to understand that it's not rebellion that weakens the matrix, rather, it's the quiet withdrawal of unconscious agreement. Freedom begins not through escape, but through interruption. The matrix loses coherence when Neo stops playing his part. Resistance feeds the illusion, but when he stops reacting, when he lets awareness guide his movements rather than fear and conditioning, the system starts to dissolve on its own. The Oracle doesn't predict the future, rather, she reframes perception. When she tells Neo, "You're not the one," she isn't issuing a verdict, she's holding up a mirror. Her words don't reveal destiny, they reveal belief. Neo must first believe he isn't the one before he can realize that the belief itself is irrelevant. He isn't preparing to become something new, he's learning to stop waiting, and he's learning to discover who he already is. What the Oracle exposes is not the path ahead, but the self that still clings to certainty. Her insight doesn't instruct, it invites. This is the essence of Neo's transformation. He doesn't gain power, he sheds illusion. He doesn't conquer the matrix, he stops energizing it. The code was never a prison on its own, it was held in place by his participation. When the bullets hit his chest and he collapses, it's not defeat, rather it's dissonance. The system completes its logic, but Neo no longer matches its rhythm. Something deeper has surfaced, an awareness that does not answer to fear. He does not slow time, he steps outside the mechanism that creates time. Sound falls away, space opens and perception shifts, and then he sees the code, and more importantly, he sees through it. The bullets don't need to be dodged, they belong to a world he no longer inhabits. The matrix becomes transparent, not because Neo wins, but because the self that once believed in it is no longer present. There is no resistance, no effort, only the quiet cessation of agreement. And this is the heart of awakening. The matrix is not something done to him, it's something lived through him. When the underlying patterns dissolve, not as abstract ideas, but as a shift in his awareness, the illusion loses coherence. There's no final battle, there's no enemy to destroy. The system ends not with force, but with stillness. It fades because he no longer participates. But Neo doesn't stand alone in this. He joins a lineage, those who, across time, have made the same quiet choice, to stop feeding the illusion. And what dissolves is not the world itself, but the beliefs and expectations that made it feel so real. Which leaves us with the question, if the world is only real because we believe it to be so, what remains when that belief falls away? If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to see more content like this. There's also a Patreon for anyone who'd like to support the channel. This video and others like it couldn't be made without the kindness and support of people like you. Thanks for watching.